Hello and welcome to the Buildup here on Balls.ie in partnership with Ladbrokes, where we bring you through the biggest events of the sporting weekend. Now, we've already had Jason Quigley talking about Anthony Joshua's big world title fight this week. We've had Stephen Ferris as well, looking ahead to the birth, I suppose, of the URC, which starts this weekend. We'll have lots more as well with Kevin Doyle giving us his 1-2 free picks and so on. But today, I want to focus on the small matter of the Ryder Cup. And that is, of course, on this weekend, Whistling Straits in Wisconsin in the United States. Europe have won about 4 million of the last 4 million and one Ryder Cups, but there's a fear that maybe this isn't the one. But we're going to talk about all of that now. We're going to get on to our friend in America, the First Cut podcast on CBS. Rick Gehman is with us now. Rick, this is a great week. We love, there's the US nationality goes 90 in a way it doesn't really in the rest of the golfing year. Europeans come together in a way that we're not even quite that sure about, but it just works for these 3 days every couple of years, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It seems like the European team, I want to say, has cracked the code, and I don't really know what that means. Obviously, I think on the American side, we haven't really figured that out yet. For me personally, there's an aspect of the Europeans where they just pull in the same direction and they check their egos at the door. And when Rory and John Rahm show up in the locker room, they're gonna fall in line and they're gonna do what Patty Harrington says, and they're gonna do what's best for the team. And you don't necessarily get the same vibe from the Americans in that. And I don't know if it's an ego thing, but it has been kind of the one aspect that appears that the USA has not been able to figure out.
Yeah. Now that said, I don't know whether Steve Stricker, it's smoke and mirrors or what, but we've seen this press conference with Bryson DeChambeau, about, us all coming together. Everybody's happy again. Brooks and Bryson, great mates, or stage chats on the practice tee. This has ruined the Ryder Cup for us if these two are just going to coexist, partner up, everybody's buddy, and they'll go back to hating each other on the tour in a couple of weeks.
So I think it's hilarious that the European team releases this all-inspiring 164. We're all part of this video, and the American Ryder Cup team releases a video of Brooks walking over to Bryson, talking for 15 seconds and walking away on the driving range. They're a little bit different. It is interesting. I do think that we talk a lot about the potential strife between Bryson and his teammates, Brooks and his teammates, some comments that Brooks has made in Golf Digest over the last couple of weeks. But even outside of that, there's got to be concerns for the American team, right? Colin Morikawa, the number one player in the auto qualification of this, hasn't played particularly well in the last couple of weeks. Jordan Spieth lost a little bit of that magic recently. I mean, even outside of, Bryson and Brooks and what that might end up being, like, I think there are other concerns. The good thing about the U.S. team is they're still very, very deep, but I'm certainly, filled with concerns.
Yeah, I mean, I won't go on about Brooks and Bryson. It's a kind of a tabloidy thing in a way, but at the same time, it is on a human interest. So interesting, it is so fascinating, really. Is there? I was listening to your podcast during the week, and you guys were talking. I felt that the table was turning a little bit on Koepka in this whole scenario, in that his comments last week, I think they were almost a watershed, in that, like, his good guy status in this feud is hanging by a knife edge at this stage, isn't it? Because those comments about the Ryder Cup and about it, they came across as selfish, whether they are or they aren't. And I really feel like his character took a bit of a hit from it, didn't it?
I think so. I think the goodwill towards Brooks Koepka over the past couple of months, it's dwindled. Listen, this started out fun, right? When Bryson and Brooks were taking stabs and jabs at each other on Twitter, it was all good. Everybody enjoyed it. Then it kind of morphed into this thing where Bryson wanted nothing to do with it anymore, and he was actually quite complimentary of Brooks Koepka. He would say, "Hey, I respect him. I want to be like him. I want to win as many major championships." And Brooks was not there to kind of return the favor. He would kind of keep this thing alive for a lot longer. And then, I mean, when you get an opportunity, and listen, we all know how this works on the first tee on Friday, whether you like Brooks or you like Bryson or you've picked a side, you're going to be rooting for the American team. Or at least we are here, or at least the fans at Whistling Straits, the majority of them are going to be. And Brooks kind of took, I don't want to say he undercut that sentiment, but it's just, for him to kind of say it's not really my thing, I prefer a more individual type aspect of golf, it really undercuts the whole thing that I'm talking about earlier, where we want all of our guys to be pulling in the same direction, and Brooks doesn't always feel like he's pulling in the same direction.
Does it speak to a bigger issue on the US team? And it might be the lack of success in recent years. And a lot of these guys mightn't have had the greatest experience. And I wonder, Rory McIlroy is a great man he talked down the Ryder Cup before he played on it. And then they had this amazing win, and suddenly he's a Ryder Cup evangelist. And then he goes to the Olympics and it's the same thing. And all of a sudden I'm a great man for the Olympics and I can't wait to go back in 4 years. Is there something to be said for these Americans just needing a good experience and needing a win and needing the fans to get behind them, and suddenly they'll all be on board as Messrs. Ryder Cup?
Maybe they just need better PR. Maybe who's letting Brooks say that? I mean, you just have to know your audience, right? And I think we at least give Brooks points for saying it like it is. If he really feels that way, cool, that's fine. But maybe this is not an event that's for you. Now, I think that and he did already change his tune, right? As soon as he gets on site at Whistling Straits, it's a lot of tweets about, okay, these are my brothers, we're going to battle, everything is all good. So that might be it. Just the experience in the moment is really going to kind of turn the tide. But for me, it feels like the Europeans have come together weeks ago, months ago. You know what I mean? It's just a different feel. It should not take you stepping onto the grounds at Whistling Straits and seeing your brothers for the week to finally get geared up for this event.
When I started watching the Ryder Cup in the 90s, 93, 97, you know, in 99 in Brookline, for example, Americans had such strong teams back then. And the reason the camaraderie and the seviness, I suppose, of the European teams were because that's what Europe needed to do to compete. You look at the teams this time out, and America has that sense again that this should be the dominant team. The world rankings say one thing, but even if you just think about what we see week in, week out from a lot of these players, the fact that as good as they are, as legendary as they are, the likes of Poulter, the likes of Lee Westwood, and all these guys are still on the European team. I think Sergio Garcia, it says a lot, because you look at the American team, it's the first team since 1993 that doesn't have either Phil or Tiger, which is an incredible thing. Like, you're talking, that's 30 years nearly. And, you know, Dustin Johnson, I think, is the oldest, is possibly the oldest on the team. It's full of rookies, but they're exciting rookies. They're major winners. They're week in, week out. We're watching them here on Sunday nights, late at night, up to the wee hours, and these guys are winning tournaments all the time. This is as exciting and as fresh a US team as we've seen in our lifetimes.
Certainly, half the teams making their first appearance, and even some of like Colin Morikawa, I'm excited about. What is Patrick Cantlay going to be like in a Ryder Cup, and Xander Schauffele and all these guys? It's fascinating, because I think you get a situation where raw talent, it's no contest. The raw talent, the United States team is severely the favorite, but there's kind of this freedom of being the underdog. If you are the European side, right? They've won 7 of 9. I think they're probably an underdog in all but maybe one of those. I mean, there's this kind of chaser's freedom, and we see this regularly on the PGA Tour or on the European Tour. Kind of the guy on Sunday who's a couple shots back, that's chaser's freedom. You can go out there and kind of freewheel it a little bit, but I'm just interested to see, especially because when we get to alternate shot, what we have heard, even from those Tiger and Phil teams, what we used to hear is, well, I'm playing with so-and-so, and he uses a different type of ball than me, and, you know, the spin's a little bit different. You never hear Rory McIlroy say that. You're never going to hear Jon Rahm talk about somebody else's golf ball. They're just going to go out there and they're going to play, and they're going to trust each other, and they're going to figure it out. So it's such a fascinating thing when we take individuals, 51 weeks a year, 52 weeks a year, and every couple of years we pair them together as teammates. It's fascinating how they react.
Absolutely. What is the sense of the European team over there? As I said, you could be in and out of golf and thinking, God, I can't believe Lee Westwood is still on this team. Now, he's playing really well, and Lee Westwood is a great player and has been an amazing Ryder Cup player, obviously the most decorated of all time, the most experienced of all time. But is there a kind of a sense of, like, Europe throw together these old guys every couple of years, and there's Rahm and McIlroy, but, I'm just wondering what the kind of general US golf fan thinks of what they're coming up against this week.
Yeah, the general U.S. golf fan does not think much of this European team. I definitely think more highly than that. To me, there's two things. This is a very, very top heavy team. John Rahm, Rory McIlroy, Victor Hovland. If you want to throw Sergio Garcia into the mix, whatever you want to do, there's three or four guys that if they're going to end up hoisting the Ryder Cup on Sunday, it's going through the stars. The stars need to shine brightly. There's also kind of, to me, more of this last dance feel, kind of in the same way. How much longer are the Europeans going to run out Lee Westwood and Ian Poulter and Sergio Garcia? And for a while, just a couple of weeks ago, we thought Justin Rose might be on this team.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the same thing. Like, when is the European side going to get a refresh? And I wonder if this is kind of the last dance, if we start to see some newer faces coming up in future Ryder Cups. It doesn't feel like, outside of maybe Victor Hovland, there's kind of a torch passing situation going on. So it's a really interesting dynamic that the European team has, and I wonder what the future of these Ryder Cups look like for them.
We obviously in this country know all about Padraig Harrington and everything that he's achieved in the game. And, we know an awful lot about his character. He would have been criticized as on the run of his life in 2008 and then deciding, winning two majors, three in 2 years, and then deciding I want to change up my game because I need to be even better. And it never quite worked out for him. And an incredible career, but he is a planner and a thinker. And we know exactly what kind of Ryder Cup captain he's going to be, for good or bad. But we know what method he's going to be. Tell us a bit about Stricker, because, my memory of Stricker is one of the best clutch putters I've ever seen. He got better as he got older, and he was Tiger's only friend on the tour. That seems to be that's the only thing I know about Stricker. What kind of a captain will he be?
Yeah, certainly Steve Stricker, very well respected, as you can imagine, amongst his peers, especially where, the ability to give those putting tips. That's always what we hear. Oh, we talked to Stricker a couple of weeks ago. Now he's putting really well, and he's always willing to lend a hand. And I think that is a really good attribute to have. I think the concern around Steve Stricker is, one, how much data is he going to rely on? We have seen the European team really dive into the data, into the metrics, and try to optimize their chances for victory. And at some point in the Ryder Cup, you sometimes have to be a little bit of a villain. The American team is so deep. He's going to have a difficult time making those hard decisions. Someone's going to have to do it. You can't run all of these guys out for 5 matches. You're going to have to make some difficult decisions when all of your players are saying, I'm ready to go. I can go right back out there. You have to have your finger on the pulse of what that really means. And you have to make those difficult decisions for who's going to play together, who's not going to play together, and how many sessions they're going to make. I'm a little bit worried about that aspect of it. To me, Steve Stricker, very much a people pleaser. He's great, but I think that there's going to be a lot of difficult decisions. I mean, you think about this. He's going to have to decide who's going out for the next session in a matter of minutes. They've prepared for this for years, and in minutes, he's going to have to make some of these decisions. I will be very impressed if he can do that correctly.
What about the golf course then? What can we expect from that this weekend? Because I think it's a course that I think we're familiar with from majors, but they're not going to set up the Ryder Cup in the way they set up major championships. And a lot of my knowledge, especially of major American golf courses, are how treacherous they'll be because you watch US Opens or PGAs. But is this going to be a player-friendly course this week?
It's going to be American friendly. I'll tell you that for sure. The way they set
no
this
wind.
up.
They've actually built a wall around to stop the wind coming in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. The idea is you make this course long. What we've seen already in this week is if you just miss the fairway, if you're, 5-10 yards off the fairway, there's not going to be much rough. It's not going to be penal. You go a little bit further than that, you're going to get the higher fescue type grass that you're not going to want to play out of. But for me, this is a course that it lends so perfectly to match play, especially as we get into the second 9. There's going to be a lot of risk reward opportunities. If you need to make up a hole or two, you're going to have the opportunity to do so. Now that might, you putting your foot on the pedal might end up costing you another hole or two, and you might get further back, but there are going to be some really interesting opportunities. This design, it allows you to play it in a lot of different ways, which I would normally say is kind of a benefit to the Europeans, who can kind of play it sometimes in the air, sometimes play it on the ground. They can think through, be a little bit more creative than the TrackMan golf that we usually get here in the States, where they just want to fly it and carry it the entire length of whatever shot they have in front of them. So I think it's going to be a thoughtful challenge that you're going to see. You're going to see big numbers. You're going to see low numbers. It's going to be exciting, especially down the stretch.
Okay, prediction time then. Other than Shane Lowry winning 5 points out of 5, or maybe he'll do 4.5 like Leona Maguire did in the Solheim there. But other than that, I don't. The American in our office is absolutely convinced this American team is going to wipe the floor. He's got a feeling. But I wonder, with the talent conversation we had earlier, if we're looking at those Ryder Cups I mentioned from the old days, where Europe's only chance was getting a big lead on Friday and Saturday because the singles America are going to come alive, and that talent deficit is going to make a big difference.
Yeah. So I am on record. I actually think the European team is going to win this. This is more than just golf at this point, right? This is the team aspect. It is trusting your partner. It is showing up in a big spot. And there's just red flag after red flag after red flag on the United States team. You know, the Americans, the conversation starts and ends with raw talent. That's what they have. They have raw talent. When you look at camaraderie, it goes to the European side. When you look at maybe even recent form, probably goes to the European side. You've got so much strife here on the U.S. team that I wonder how that impacts a lot of these big moments and a lot of the trust that it's needed out there. So listen, there's a reason that 7 out of the last 9 of these Ryder Cups have gone in the way of the Europeans. I think that they, again, have figured something out in the locker room that they're able to bring it out onto the golf course. And if the wind continues to blow at Whistling Straits, I think it's the Europeans who get the job done again.
Wow. Okay, there you go. Mind games perhaps from Rick Gehman, but I don't think so. I think I think Americans have been burned too many times in this competition. Rick, thanks so much for taking the time. Enjoy the Ryder Cup this weekend. People should listen to Rick's First Cup podcast. Really great chat this week. Actually, really enjoyed it, specifically as they built up to the Ryder Cup. So please check that out. And Rick, we'll talk to you again, I'm sure.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks so much again to Rick. As I mentioned, you can listen to his CBS Sports golf podcast called The First Cut, where him and 3 other golfing luminaries talk about the issues of the day. They had a really good pre-Ryder Cup show that you should listen to as well. You can find that wherever you get podcasts. We'll talk to Rick again, I'm sure. There's lots more Ryder Cup stuff on balls.ie as well. Of course, lots on Ladbrokes too. If you're having a bet on the Ryder Cup, there's all kinds of markets for you there. You might have got some tips from what Rick said there. Please do check that out. Always gamble responsibly and visit dunlewy.net for more information. We'll be back with more build-up later this week.